because if money is not an issue, or you have disposable income, then I would say invest in a high quality water filter and invest in minerals to remineralize your water. Hydration is key. Um, Eat organic food as much as you can. If you have like a local farmer's market, eating organic and in season is going to be great for your health. You're going to maximize your nutrient absorption if you're eating local and in season. And getting 10,000 steps a day minimum. If you're really looking to transform your health, maybe do 15, but 10,000 bare minimum. I think being sedentary has, they say sitting is the new smoking, and it really is true. If you want to see drastic health improvements, like get moving and get out in the sun.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to ALLSMITH. I'm joined by a board-certified holistic doctor, chiropractor, and neuroscience-trained practitioner who is unapologetically calling out the noise of the modern wellness culture. She's built a fast-growing platform by pairing science-backed truths with raw, unfiltered honesty about health, which I freaking love. She's talking about hormones and what it actually takes to reclaim your vitality in a world full of processed food, broken medical systems, and stupid quick fixes. None other than Dr. Marley Quinn. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Bryce.
I'm stoked to unpack your story a little bit today, but briefly in your intro, I feel like people can already resonate with you based on our community, but at what point in your life did you realize, hey, this isn't working? Like we're pushing people towards all these man-made products, all these things that are processed. And you're a woman that really pushes the envelope around how do we get more connected to our natural biology, connected to the earth, connected to nature, staying away from processed foods and integrating REAL food over just like REEL posts.
Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't necessarily one moment that it all happened. There wasn't really a tipping point. It's just been kind of small things over time. When I look back on my journey, I realized that there were so many times that I went to a medical doctor and the issue at hand that was going on in my body was something that they tried to fix with a pharmaceutical. And of course, to no avail. It never worked. I had acne that they tried to use an antibiotic for, and it just wrecked my gut. And I tore my ACL. And instead of getting surgery, I met with people that said, "Oh, you can heal this yourself." And so I just realized, like, over time, it was just small things here and there that led me to realize, maybe this highly refined approach the medical system has, where they're just prescribing certain things, isn't going to work. And I started listening to other doctors that were saying, wait, there's other ways to do this. You can eat whole foods and you can eat real foods and you can actually heal your body yourself and you can live more aligned with nature and just see what that does for your mental health and see what that does for your physical health.
I really appreciate you sharing that because what I'm hearing there, Marley, is that there's a specificity and a uniqueness to the listening component. And when I say listening, it's not just listening to Instagram, listening to studies, listening to research, listening to what you experienced in medical school. It's listening when the body's communicating to you. Hey, I'm developing acne. Hey, I have digestive distress. Hey, I'm experiencing joint pain. Hey, I've got some brain fog or some irritability, or I'm dancing consistently between this anxiety and depressive, landscape, or this line where people just assume, hey, I have this thing. How do I fix it? And rather than fix it, I think it's important to understand it, build a relationship with it, self-reflect on our habits first, and then ask the question, what lifestyle adjustments can I integrate or can I remove in order to depreciate some of these these noises that the body is trying to teach us or trying to share with us. But the human mind wants to conditionalize everything. Oh, you have this, you are this, so you're going to take this pill. That symptom's going to go away, but it usually unlocks another problem. And so when you observed this systemic problem and realized, hey, I don't want to operate that way, what was your actionable that kind of took place where you were just like, I've had enough, I'm going to try something different?
I think it was definitely when I tore my ACL, because at the time I didn't have great health insurance, and that meant that maybe I wouldn't be able to get surgery, like even if I had wanted to at that point. And when I heard other people around me say that they healed their ACL without surgery, it just kind of opened my eyes to everything, because I got multiple opinions from multiple orthopedic surgeons that said basically, you're never going to be able to run again if you don't get this surgery. Like, you probably won't be able to do more than walk. And then I met people that were telling me a completely different story. And I think that that was kind of a tipping point of me realizing, like, okay, maybe everything doctors say isn't like the gospel, isn't the law. And after putting off the surgery because I didn't have great health insurance, I just realized like how capable the body is to heal itself. And I realized how many people weren't talking about that. And on a great, like, grander scale, it's such a disservice to everyone on earth, because there are people just like me that can't afford traditional healthcare. And like all they have is free resources, like getting outside in the sun or doing their own exercises at home. Like, sometimes that's all people can afford. And I realized those are the people that I want to help. And that's almost everyone on the planet. Like, everyone on the planet can always return to nature. You don't have to have the best health insurance to get outside and use natural resources to help heal your body.
It's beautifully said, and it's an interesting dichotomy because there's not a lot of research or there's not a lot of narrative pushing towards the free things, because a healthy patient is no longer a patient. And that's like beautiful in the health and fitness space, because it's like, wow, I gave you all these tools, you integrated them and made them your own. Go spread your wings and fly. But what's interesting in our world and in the healthcare system, speaking of insurance, first and foremost, there's an ideology of, hey, if this doesn't fall within your health insurance, you can't do it. And the reason for that is because it's probably close to 10 or 20 times more expensive out of pocket than when the health insurance pays for at least a portion of it. What's so interesting, though, I should have sent this reel to you. I saw it the other day. This guy has a young child, and the child ends up having some sort of emergency. So they call 911. The ambulance comes to the house, picks up his daughter, takes her to the local emergency room, and she gets treated. They send him a bill for $600. And he calls them and he goes, you've probably seen this before based on your smile.
I've seen it.
He calls them and he goes, hey, I forgot to give you my health insurance. Let me give you that data. They're like, oh yeah, go ahead. So he gives, his policy number. He gives the name of his health insurance, and his price goes up. Like, the bill that he was sent was like $600. And then when he gives the health insurance, they go, oh yeah, now it's going to be $1,237. He's like, hold on. So I pay for health insurance in order to protect myself, not be penalized on my taxes, and then also to umbrella coverage, my children, to ensure that my family's safe. And I'm going to pay more with my health insurance than I do without health insurance. And, this poor agent, he is trying to follow policy, and he goes, oh yeah, like, we were providing you the discount for somebody that doesn't have health insurance. He's like, hold on. So people that don't have health insurance in this country are paying less out of pocket for emergency services to keep people alive than people with health insurance. So you're actually penalizing the people that actively participate in the system at place. but you're rewarding people that come here illegally that don't have health insurance. They could be hard workers, they could be amazing people, but they're not really following in alignment with the rules and regulations. Marley, how the fuck does this make sense? Like that right there is like, okay, are you doing this thing just to acquire votes on the left? Or is this, something where we can have a common sense argument of like, if our true goal is patient care and you're an active participant within the system of paying for health insurance, wouldn't that make sense for the health insurance payer to pay a lower premium and somebody that's not an active contributor into the health insurance system to pay a little bit more, or to, at the very least, create an understanding between the two? But to me, I'm like, whoa, that is a huge red flag. What are your thoughts when I share that story?
Yeah, I have seen that exact Instagram reel, and I showed it to a ton of people because that is exactly what's happening in our healthcare system. And I think people don't even realize all the time that that's going on. Um, I think I think a lot of the issues are with the health insurance companies themselves, because, or even the hospitals. Like there's just, the price should be the price, whether you have insurance or not. Taking an ambulance, if it's $1,000, that's what it should be. And health insurance can help you cover that if you have health insurance. But it is, I've seen that reel, and it is crazy to me that when you pay for health insurance, the price goes up. And where does that justification even come from? Like, how does a hospital justify charging you more just because you have health insurance? And my dad always says this, like, you can't walk into any other store in America, like the grocery store, and buy, I don't know, a sack of oranges, and the price differs on whether or not you have health insurance or whether or not you're using a credit card. Like the price is the price for everything in America except when it comes to healthcare. And I think that just signals to me a lot of corruption in a sense, because it's like, why is the price not the price? Where are these numbers coming from? um, and at the end of the day, it's always at the expense of the consumer.
Yeah, it's so well said. And it's interesting because I recently had a plumber over to my house, and the price wasn't the price. Like we had referred him like tons of work. We've worked with him numerous times. He's been great to us. We've been great to him. So we actually comped our service. And I was incredibly appreciative. But you pause for a second, you think about what is value, right? If you take price out of it, and you think, what is value? It's like, hey, this gentleman is rewarding us based on a loyalty relationship because we referred to him service. So I don't necessarily agree that the price is the price. I think it's case dependent on the service. But when it comes to healthcare and you're looking at, the cost of morphine, for example, just to name like a big drug, or Oxycontin, for example, the variability associated with pricing, and then you integrate the complexity of generic brands and how it's cheaper to produce and this, that, and the other, health insurance coverage versus non-health insurance coverage, the relationships that the hospitals have with different insurance companies, right? One insurance company might be paying a higher premium. So as the consumer, I might get Vicodin or Oxycontin or morphine for less than somebody else that has a different consumer. What all that really says to me is that there's like a good boys club behind the scenes. People are navigating maximal profit, not maximal impact. Not trying to save lives, but to try to monetize this as much as possible. And the biggest red flag of it all is when you look at the COVID vaccine and you see all the variants associated with the testing protocols and the accuracy associated with that, then you lean in towards, oh, if a doctor says that somebody has COVID and they have to get a ventilator, or somebody has to go through COVID protocols, they're actually incentivized. And now they're going to receive monetization, or at that time received monetization. You and I both know, Molly, if you have incentive, you can then backtrack and predict behavior. If you tell me if I am the most volatile, corruptive podcast host right now, and I'm going to make $1 million, I'm going to be running my mouth belligerently. And that's kind of the world we live in, right? Like a lot of social media and podcasts have become less about real and more about attention. If you can win the game of attention, you get rewarded and you get monetized. So people are going to say the most ridiculous things. They're going to wear the most ridiculous things, and they're going to use some sort of caption or something that's attention grabbing in order to win the game of capitalism. And so my question there for you is what are your thoughts? Like if we're playing the game of capitalism, real life monopoly, and doctors go to medical school and they're trying to accumulate knowledge, but they're blindfolded, or they're steered rather, in the sense of like, hey, this is truth, this is where studies are, but all the studies are based on investment from big pharma in order to maximize profit and create fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Now it's like, how do we know who to trust? How do we, anytime we see, I mean, at least me, when I see the word according to this study, I'm like, okay, where do I need to filter this? I don't trust it at all anymore. And I know I'm not the only one. I think there's a lot of people that are now like, hey, I think doctors start their process with the best interest possible, but then they accumulate 6 figures plus in medical school debt. And they're like, hey, if I don't play this game, I can't provide for my family. I can't pay off my debt. And now I just wasted the last 8 to 12 years of my life. And so to kind of paint that picture, not just for our listeners, but for you, what are your thoughts, and why have you taken such a passionate response as to how to correct and fit this into people's lives in a very like low barrier to entry way with social media?
Wow, this is a great question. I think that the number one thing when you're working with someone who is supposed to be helping you with your health, whether that's a medical doctor or a chiropractic doctor or a holistic doctor, a naturopath, whoever, is that knowing that they're in integrity. Because there's a lot of doctors that, like you said, we kind of chatted before the podcast started about how the average patient visit is 7 minutes or less. And I think any healthcare practitioner that is in integrity with the mission of wanting to get people healthy knows that a 7-minute appointment is not going to do something for someone that is coming to you in the depths of their health despair. And so, whether it's someone that you find on social media or a practitioner that you're working with in person, um, you know, as easy as it is to just say, oh, well, that's the system, and I just have to spend 7 minutes with the patient, and this is what insurance allows. I think the most powerful practitioners out there are ones that say, I'm actually not going to follow the rules of the system, and I might take less. I might take a pay cut if that means that I can actually help people and serve people. So maybe seeing a doctor that doesn't take insurance, but in the grand scheme of things, you're going to save money because you're actually able to sit down for an hour with them. And I have done the math on this, right? And it's just like, if you take the cost of sitting down with a medical practitioner for a full hour and divide that up into seeing a doctor, I don't know, what is that, 9 times for 7 minutes each, you are saving money by paying out of pocket, or working with someone that at the very least is not going to bend over to whatever the system says that they have to do.
It's so well said. And man, it's heavy, right? Like, because there is the fear. I have a lot of friends that are doctors, and are like, man, if I don't play within the system, I could get my licensure taken away. I could get sued for medical malpractice. There's a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And you're like, man, I don't want to undo my entire life's work in pursuit of what I truly believe is right, because it goes against the legalities. And then it skews your headspace, because there's incentive to play within the boundaries in order to keep playing the game and keep actively participating. And you start to care less because you're like, well, these people don't care about themselves. They're drunk, or they're making this mistake, or they're leaning on these vices to get an altered state of consciousness. They don't really want to be helped. Well, they don't really want to be helped because they feel like nobody cares. They feel like they can't fit within the 7 minutes. And then as the practitioner, you're feeling the pressure of the medical director, the owner of the hospital. Those people are feeling pressure from big pharma. And it's like, hey, if we don't operate, we're not going to get the paycheck. And if we don't get the paycheck, we can't provide for the family. Now all of this hard work has been wasted. But there's something really freaking cool when you look at this from the landscape of the hero's journey. And you just go, you know what? Fuck all of you. I care about you. And right now, I'm going to play within the boundaries, but I'm going to take that 7 minutes, tell it to suck it, and I'm going to be with you for the appropriate amount of time, whatever that is. That might be 9 minutes. That might be 19 minutes. I don't know. But I think it's actually cool to be late to the next appointment, knowing that you're doing right. Like if you can help one person a day. My father said this before he passed. He said, in life, there's givers and there's takers. And the givers sleep better at nighttime. If you have 15 patients on your schedule in a day and you spend a little bit extra time with some of them who actually need it in that moment, and you get to the next appointment, you're like, hey, I'm so sorry for being relatively late. I obviously respect your time, your energy, and your attention, but that person really needed it in that moment. And I'm totally open to giving you the same safe space. My goal within my health and wellness journey, not just personally, but in my service orientation is to genuinely help people. And sometimes that falls outside of the landscape of our scheduling system. And I hope you understand that. And I want to create upfront expectations and understanding that real care takes a little bit more time. And I apologize for being late, but I'm here for you and I'm committed to giving you the best care possible. Look at the beauty in that versus, hey, Marley, did you fill out the questionnaire beforehand? Yeah, I noticed on this thing you put a sad face. I noticed on this thing you rated it a 3 instead of a 10, right? Like we're trying to use the headspace to create measurables that are fucking unrealistic. We assign happy faces to emotion in relation to the depth chart of like anxiety and depression. We assign, pain based on either happy faces or some sort of numerical value, but it's not real. It's creating a surface level understanding of like, oh, you're Bryce, you have this pain, and you're in my head, you're a 6. That's the pain. That's really not life threatening. Here's some Tylenol, or here's a low dosage of Vicodin. Get the fuck out of my office. Let me charge you, and let's call it a day. It's not real. And nobody's talking about this other than, Rogan, other than maybe Brigham Bueller, who's popularizing peptides and all those things. And, I'm saying these things and I'm getting these DMs like, dude, you're an asshole and this, that. And I'm like, no. I'm not trying to be on the left or the right. I'm genuinely craving truth. And I'm craving, hey, if somebody has a problem, like, how do we figure out how to actually be with that person and not just make it a scalable model of profit to just see as many patients in a day as possible? So when I paint this picture, Marley, what's coming to mind for you? Because you're taking action as well. And you're like, you know what? I'm not going to follow the traditional norm of a doctor. You went to school for it. You have the reputability. You have the education. But you're kind of bleeding outside of that, kind of into the realm of RFK Jr. What are your thoughts and what is your strategy as to how you implement this understanding with people? And I hope I'm painting the picture that aligns with you a little bit.
The Trident family taught me something really important this last year, that we are all a bundle of stories, both good, bad, and everything in between. All of their cold brews remind their customers that they are part of something bigger than themselves. I start my day with the Sweet Cream Cold Brew as I am prepping my mind and body for fitness, service, coaching, and podcasting. With various locations in San Diego, they offer over 14 nitro cold brews and a variety of specialty drinks. You can find the perfect brew and pair it with one of their treats from the Keto Bakery. You can check them out over at tridentcoffee.com and use code ALLSMITH to take your coffee experience to the next level.
I think that it's a huge task at hand, because basically it's asking people to step outside of the scarcity ring that capitalism puts all of us in. And especially when you are a doctor, you know, our society puts doctors on this pedestal. Like, that is doctors and lawyers. Like, that is kind of the top tier. And those are the people that have worked hardest to be in the position, and they should be paid adequately for their time, and they should be paid the most. And it's a big task to ask doctors to kind of put that ideology aside that we're told from a very young age that these are the most important professions. And of course, they are the most important if they can be the most impactful. But otherwise, they're just the most profitable. And that's not really impacting anyone positively. And I think, I mean, I have a bit of a spiritual take on this, you know, like we all know, like you can't take material stuff with you, but you can leave the world a better place. Like, your Mercedes Benz is always going to be here. Your Porsche is just going to be here when you die, and it's not going to be yours anymore. But having a positive impact on the world can change lives forever, long after you're gone. And so when you're painting this picture, I mean, in a perfect world, I would love for doctors to just adopt this mindset of, like you said, like the givers can sleep better at night. And what would you rather leave on earth? A bunch of expensive cars or a bunch of people that have healthier and better lives because of you?
Yeah, I like that a lot. I also am a big fan of the question of why can't we do both? Right? Like I want doctors and lawyers to be rewarded in the sense of they put in the time, the energy, and the upfront investment into their education to gain more time, energy, attention, critical thinking, and knowledge in their craft. But there's a right way and there's a mediocre way to do that. There's good coaches, there's good lawyers, there's good doctors. There's also bad lawyers, bad doctors, bad coaches, bad podcasters, people that are always manipulated by the agenda or by the monetization that's in their back pocket. Politicians fall into the same realm. We shouldn't skew our headspace based on just money. I understand that it's a variable, but I also think that we should press pause and critically think amidst the chaos and think, okay, what is the right thing to do right here? And the reason why I say that is this. If you do the wrong thing and you make a lot of money, you don't live in peace. You're constantly looking over your shoulder of, man, I just put a skeleton in my closet. What if somebody finds out about this? I didn't do the right thing when nobody was watching. Nobody's going to find out. I got the reward. I'm doing the thing. And you might operate that way for 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, 12 years. But it's marinating your energy. It's marinating your headspace. You're constantly looking over that back shoulder. And what that leads me to believe is that famous quote, people will forget what you said, they'll forget what you did, but they'll never forget the way you made them feel. If you made the addict feel like you were their drug dealer and they could immediately get opioids from you, or that you were going to write the script because in the short term, you didn't want to deal with the bullshit, you didn't want to have the hard conversation, you're creating your identity around that. Your consistent behavior, your consistent action starts to now marinate your identity. But if you do the right thing when nobody's watching, you fail a few times, you're willing to piss a few people off, you're willing to say no, but then all of a sudden you have some successes. You're teaching people about lifestyle. You're not pursuing just the monetization, but you're pursuing truth. You're pursuing honesty. You're pursuing like building trust and rapport. I would almost guarantee that you're going to win the long game. You're probably not going to win the short game. Just being honest. Like, you're going to lose in the short term and you're going to feel like all your education went to waste. You're like, why the fuck am I doing this? There's no reward in the system that we're playing in. But humans are still humans. AI is not going to replace what your intuition can feel from the right people at the right time in the right place. they're going to pick up on, oh, wow, Dr. Marley really listens to me. Dr. Marley really interested herself into the vessel of my landscape and wanted to steer me in the right direction. And that started with protocols that were free, about breath work, morning sunlight, cold water exposure, trying to eat real food, getting away from processed foods. And then over the course of time, as I had holes in my health and wellness journey, she then prescribed certain things or suggested supplements. Yeah, they were monetizable, but they were helpful based on the need. It wasn't the first thing prescribed without seeking to understand. That's a beautiful picture. And that's like when you get to the end of your life, you're like, dang, I did some cool shit when I was out there. What are your thoughts on that a little bit?
Yeah, that is a beautiful picture and I wholeheartedly agree. And I have seen it time and time again. The most successful chiropractors that I know were people that were never really worried about the money. They were always worried about, or not worried, but concerned about and focused on how they could serve people. And I have just seen that return 100-fold for them because they weren't focused on the bottom line. And when you're focused on service, I've seen that with my parents as well. Like they raised me to realize that when you're in service, I mean, kind of like you said, like you're going to refer people to a doctor that actually listened to you and actually helped you and cared for you. No one is referring to a doctor that saw you for 3 minutes, didn't look you in the eyes, hand you a script and left the room. Like no doctor is getting that referral, or a dermatologist that, doesn't even look at your skin and takes 8 months to get in to see an appointment. No one's referring to those people. And so I think, obviously, I do have a strong faith as well. I think it's tied to my faith in the sense that I believe that if I make it my mission to serve people, then the abundance will come from that, because how could it not?
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that you tied in the faith right there. What I wanted to bookmark you on is when somebody is referring a doctor or a coach, modern day, with things like Yelp and review systems. I just had a new client come in. We did a discovery call and he came in. He goes, so I see what you do. I see that you care. He goes, what are your credentials? What's your resume? What are your backgrounds? So I talked to him about, my education, exercise science, exercise physiology, the numerous courses, and, I name drop certifications and things that I realize are going to land in his headspace. But at the baseline, I'm like, I just care. I'm not trying to flex my resume. I'm not trying to flex whatever credentials are there. There are some cool things that I was interested in that added some continuing education and some cool tools to the toolbox that hopefully I get to use when necessary. But what's interesting is it's hard to measure care. It's hard to refer care. It's easy to go, oh, you should see this doctor. He's worked with, X, Y, and Z professionals, and he's got these credentials, and he's the best in the business. And it's flexing a resume that I don't know how much you paid attention in those courses. I don't know how much you learned. I don't know how good your relationship was with your mentor or your coach or your strategist or your professor at that time. I just know that you have a piece of paper that with AI now may or may not have been fabricated. And I don't actually give a shit about your credentials that much. I give a shit about you as a human. And this whole landscape of healthcare, I think, comes down to being a human. I think the best doctors and nurses actually have the best bedside manner. They have the best relationships where if it doesn't fall within their scope, they can refer to people that are like, man, you really have mastered that craft. You understand orthopedics better than I do. I'm an ER doc, or I'm a, regular physician assistant, or somebody that falls within that space. And I think being able to refer out and contextually speak to it where you actually care is really beautiful and really special, to have the hard conversation, which you and I both know the answer to most questions is 2 words. It depends. But that doesn't land within the sales landscape of the human mind, which is, I want certainty, I want a path forward, and I want to understand how to fix. What are your thoughts on how to really create knowledge and understanding around what it means to be a healthcare practitioner and truly caring?
Honestly, I think that that's kind of what the majority of everyone's healthcare education should be. And unfortunately, it's not. It's maybe, like a little line here and there in each class. I think that a lot of healthcare practitioners get lost in thinking that they're the ones doing the healing. And kind of like you said, like the most important thing is whether or not you care. Like the best healthcare practitioners know that they are just there to witness and support you. They can't do your healing for you. That's not impossible. And even if you break a bone, they say this analogy in chiropractic school all the time. If you break a bone, who's doing the healing? Like you go in and they put your bone in a cast, but it's your body that is healing the bone underneath the cast. Like all they can do is witness and support you. They just supported your bone with a cast, but your own body is doing the healing. And so I think the best doctors and practitioners know that if they can be a guide and help you through something maybe you haven't been through before, but they have, that's really where the rubber meets the road. And I think that that's the same, not just with healthcare practitioners, but coaches or mentors in any arena. Um, hopefully the people that you're choosing to support you on whatever journey you're on are people that you genuinely admire. And that can be hard to say about medical doctors, for example. Like if you go in and this medical doctor obviously does not look like the face of someone that is healthy, it doesn't make sense to take medical advice from them. And I think, like you said, when you really drop down to a human level, at the bottom line, it's all about being a human. I think you can see through whether or not someone is actually walking the walk, and that's the most important thing when you truly want to heal instead of put a band-aid over something.
What was the moment that you realized that the traditional medical system was starting to fail patients?
I have to think about this. I don't know if there was necessarily one pinpointed moment. Actually, yeah, there was. I was in college. It's my second year of university, and I had mono, and I just I couldn't get out of bed. I was feeling terrible. And I woke up one morning and I was like, okay, this is it. I have to go to the doctor. And so I did. And they tested me for strep throat twice because that's what they thought it was. And I went in saying, I think I have mono. And both of my strep tests came back negative, and they still tried to prescribe me an antibiotic for strep, even though they knew that the test was negative. And they wanted to send me on my way with this antibiotic. And by that point, I knew, randomly taking antibiotics it's not a great thing to do. If you don't have to take antibiotics, it's best to not. And especially because I didn't have a legitimate diagnosis. My only diagnosis was not strep, but we're still going to give you pharma for it anyway. I just knew something wasn't right. And so I had to beg them to test me for mono. And they finally tested me for mono. And of course, the test came back positive. And any doctor knows, or any person who's taken a biology class knows, that mononucleosis is a viral disease, a viral infection, and you can't treat viruses with antibiotics. You can only treat bacterial infections with antibiotics. And so it was kind of then that I realized, oh, they're just like willing to push pharmaceuticals you don't need at all, even when the tests say there's nothing here to treat with an antibiotic. They'll still give it to you. And so it was that year in school, because I was pre-med. it was right after that I started looking into alternate routes, because I'd like to think that I value integrity, and I just realized maybe it's not even the doctor's fault, but this is the system that they've chosen to be a part of, and it's not a system that I wanted any part of at all.
I really appreciate you sharing that. Mono is a complex thing, which is something we can discuss a little bit later. But something that's really important to note is that at the end of the day, practitioners are humans. They're striving to use the rearview mirror to self-reflect or look into their ideological or knowledge bank account to think, okay, what are the signs and symptoms? How do I fix? How do I treat? How do I get this woman back into doing the things that she loves? I think it starts with like honest, loving, compassionate treatment. The problem is humans really want to conceptually understand and create labels. You have sore throat, you have fever, you have sleep deprivation, you have pain or achiness. Immediately that points towards strep, right? Like in the natural surface level human mind, without like really contextually getting to know the patient, you're like, signs, symptoms all point to this. It seems like an easy fix. But one of my favorite lines to say to clients within the wellness space is, you know your body better than I ever will. What do you think this is? I would assume that modern day people are using ChatGPT, PubMed, like they're going down the rabbit hole anytime their signs and symptoms feel a little bit off kilter. And most people know relative pattern recognition of like, hey, I've had strep, or I've had a cold, or I've had, a fever before. Here's something that I think it could be. I think that's a great place to start. How come there's distrust there from the practitioner versus the patient? And they're not taking into consideration like, wow, this person is communicating to me these things and I'm simply ignoring them with my egotistical expert hat on.
Yeah, I think it's a silly thing that happens, because I've heard the cliche of doctors get annoyed when you come in and you've used Google as your doctor and you're coming in with your own diagnosis. But I find it to be quite the opposite. I would love if patients came in and had the awareness level of saying, here's what I think is going on. Here are my symptoms. Like, I've researched this myself. I know what's going on in my body. Um, I think that that's infinitely more helpful to the doctor. And I think patients maybe get a bad rap because they're coming in, and of course they're just anxiety has exploded about the situation because they've gone down the Google rabbit hole. But I think if patients could come in with like a level head of here's what I think is going on, or even if they do have anxiety, I think that doctors should be able to hold space for that. And it's totally fine if your patient comes in and they're worried that they have some monstrosity of a diagnosis and you're able to rule that out. I think that that's beneficial and helpful for everyone. And in my case, like, had I really pushed for mono from the beginning, that would have been even more helpful, and they would have been able to see more patients had we gotten to the bottom of things sooner.
What's also very interesting is that I work with a dedicated naturopath. He's been on the podcast before. It's Dr. Jason Fan. Huge shout out to him and his compassion, his empathy, his bedside manner. He's helped me with numerous things. He's been on the show. He's talked about all kinds of things that can add tools to your toolbox. If you guys haven't heard that episode, Dr. Jason Fan on ALLSMITH, we talked a lot about peptides and the FDA and the medical system, things that can be very beneficial for people. But at the end of the day, Marley, the program that works is the one that you do. In reality, compliance is science. If I tell you that you need to take vitamin D and you're deficient in vitamin D, you knowing that is not enough. Actually taking the vitamin D with the vitamin K2 and a little bit of magnesium where it's fully absorbed matters, because the compliance is going to lead to the consistency, which is going to lead to the improved health biomarkers. I'd say the other thing that I'm curious about with you being a doctor and operating within this landscape, if a patient comes in and says, hey, I think it's this, and you're like, just to be an extremist, practitioner, you don't know what you're talking about. Let us do some tests. Let us figure this out. Oh, it's actually this instead of what you thought it was, that. How much does placebo play a role, right? Because when I look at health and wellness, like buy-in and trust are almost more important than the actual specificity of what's going on. Not always, but they're important factors to take into consideration. And the reason why I say this is LeBron posted a video yesterday of doing some snatch grip deadlifts. And they didn't look the best. He's 6'8". He's not a weight room guy. He's a professional basketball player, and he's done it for over 20 years. So clearly something he's doing is working. But it doesn't fit within the landscape or the psychological realm of like the traditional strength coach that wants to harp on, the specificity of his movement or his form, which is what Instagram likes to say. But if you pause for a second and you think, whoever his strength and conditioning coach or his personal trainer is, they created buy-in with him and trust and love and support, whether that's from historical track record of being children together or whatever their history is. It doesn't matter. You could be the greatest strength coach in the world. You could be the greatest doctor in the world. If you're not creating trust and buy-in and love with your patient where they feel like you actually care and you're going to lead them to the destination or the outcome that they're pursuing, your X's and O's of knowledge don't really matter that much. And so how much does that play a role into this conversation that we're having where you're coming in and you're communicating with me honestly and vulnerably? If I just dismiss that, you're like, fuck this guy. He didn't actually listen. He just took his ego and his knowledge and experience and overprescribed to make a buck. Where does that landscape kind of play a role between practitioner and patient as far as taking into the consideration the data input from the patient, taking into consideration the data input from your schooling, your knowledge, and your expertise, and trying to create a very loving roadmap forward that aligns with the patient?
I think this is definitely a multifaceted answer because I think absolutely the attitude, first of all, of your practitioner can be a very big determinant in how your health plays out in the long run. You definitely need a practitioner that is bought in just as much, if not more, than the patient is. And having a practitioner that has a positive attitude, when we talk about the placebo effect, I think just when it comes to even terminal diagnoses, having a practitioner that is willing to see the glass half full instead of empty, I believe can totally change the outcome of someone's health prognosis. And I think that Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about this a lot. And I haven't gone too much into his work, but I mean, he does have these studies about how your beliefs around what's going on can absolutely influence what's going on. And so I think that doesn't just count for the patient, that also counts for the practitioner as well. And secondly, I think that diagnoses kind of get too much press in a sense. I think people over identify with them and see them as an identity rather than just perhaps a framework that your health is falling under for this moment, such as ADHD. When you look at the DSM-5, there's, I don't know, a list of 10 qualifications, and if you meet 8 of them, then you have ADHD. But because there's such a long list of things that qualify, the presentation of ADHD could be so different for so many different people. And I think people over identify and make a diagnosis their entire identity, which I think has an effect, call it the placebo effect or whatever. And perhaps they start to manifest these other things that are these other symptoms that are attached to this diagnosis that maybe they didn't have before, but now they're anxious because they have a diagnosis. So on top of having ADHD, now they're anxious because they're over identifying with this label. And so I think the placebo effect is twofold or tenfold, however you want to look at it. And your beliefs around what's going on as the patient and the practitioner absolutely matter. And again, I don't think that that's talked about enough. And this is exactly why there's such a thing as white coat syndrome. When people go in to the doctor's office and they get their blood pressure taken, it might be, 10% higher than what they were measuring at home, just because the act of being in a doctor's office is increasing their blood pressure. It's making them nervous and they're anxious about what their results are going to be. And that just goes to show how important mindset is for the healthcare practitioners holding the field for their patients.
That is so beautifully said. I'm so happy you touched on those things, because there's variables, right? And those variables aren't talked about because the human mind wants to conditionalize and create understanding around metrics. This is how much money was made. This is your blood pressure. This is the dosage. Everybody wants numbers, and they always love to say numbers don't lie. But it's like everything that's measured doesn't always count. Everything that counts isn't always measured. You think about the process of going to see the doctor modern day. A, does it fit within your landscape of your health insurance, or are you going to have to pay out of pocket? What's the parking situation? Are you going to have to get validated? Are you fearful that you're going to have to pay an arm and a leg for parking? You scheduled this appointment 6 months out because they were so busy. So now there's already anxiety on your calendar. There's anxiety of, oh, they're going to take your blood. You can't eat. You have to be fasted. So now you're like, oh my gosh, I normally eat, relatively late when I get home from work. And here's my normal protocol. I have to change the whole thing. I'm going to pee in the morning. I'm going to be tired. I can't have my coffee now because that's going to skew my blood panel. Look at that communication strategy. It's not calm. It's not catching you at your actual baseline. It's something that produces results that might be close in proximity, but they are a metric, not just the metric. And so I think it's important for people contextually to take away one very important factor from today's conversation, that it's a variable. It's not the only variable. Anxiety is going to be higher. Look at your habits more than you look at the outcomes. Try to understand from your healthcare practitioner, connection. Ask real questions, update your operating system, have tools in your toolbox so that way you're not going in just blind, trusting the white coat, because they're human too. They may have been up all night with their newborn, or they may have had a fight with their spouse, or they might be experiencing financial difficulty. At the end of the day, doctors are still humans. They're not God. And I think it's important to note that as far as just having an honest conversation, and every step of the way, the body's keeping the score. If you're experiencing digestive distress, you don't have a sex drive, your periods are irregular, you're experiencing anxiety, frustration, depression, brain fog, those are things to take into consideration. Then ask yourself, what is my lifestyle looking like? What are my sleep habits? Can I get away from the screen? Can I charge my phone in a different room instead of next to my bed? Can I, upon first waking up, get hydration before I just over caffeinate? Can I integrate the majority of my medicine or supplements with food, or follow the appropriate prescription, whether it needs to be on an empty stomach or with food, or how frequently that needs to be taken throughout the day? Oftentimes we add in these protocols and they're like, oh, they didn't work. It's like, we didn't follow the fucking instructions. You didn't take them consistently. You didn't take them with food. You didn't take them based on the assignment at hand. And then you're going to blame the system, or you're going to blame the medication. But in reality, the point that I'm getting here, Marley, is that the compliance is the science. But in order to create compliance, whether you're a doctor, whether you're a coach, whether you're a lawyer, wherever you land within the gamification of your occupation, you must create buy-in and trust. Without buy-in and trust, the X's and O's of your education might land with some people based on your resume and the letters after your name. But long term, especially modern day with everybody questioning every system possible, you're going to have to show proof of concept that you want to listen, that you care, and that you have knowledge in more than just big pharma, but actually in the human experience.
Absolutely. Yeah, I definitely agree with this.
I'm just curious your thoughts there, like in relation to this, because so many people are placing trust in the white coat, but the big white coat is a tool. It's a tool in the toolbox, and it's someone that can help navigate your experience with you. But if you place all your trust in that and you take your experience and push it underneath the rug, there's information that's lost. There's understanding that's lost. How do you take this into consideration within your practice?
Yeah, I think the patients that I want to work with are patients that really want to take health into their own hands. And the reason that I want to work with these patients is because, like you said, like the compliance is the science. And so if you're a patient that is wanting to take your health into your own hands, then you will succeed. It's about having autonomy and authority over your body and having health sovereignty, and having that goal will always get you further than basically saying I have no responsibility when it comes to my health and I have no way to control this, when in fact you do. And I think the way that our society has set up this healthcare system is maybe unconsciously, but it is on some level extremely disempowering to patients. People come into the office and they just feel helpless, and they've kind of been told you can't do this yourself, and you need a doctor to walk you through this. And of course, yes, creating dependency. And of course, like I've said, having a trusted healthcare practitioner that will walk alongside you can be very helpful. But thinking that your doctor is going to heal you when, like you said, your doctors are not God, it really it's disempowering for everyone.
Free is the way to be. Life beats us up a bit and causes some bumps and bruises, but that doesn't mean we have to stay on the sidelines. This is why we've partnered with Quinn Labs. Get back to doing what you love with this incredible portable device designed to get you back in the game. Quinn is on a mission to move people from pain to possible with their top-rated red light therapy and laser solution, which tackles inflammation along with muscle and joint pain quickly and effectively. What I love is that it's portable and rechargeable, making it easy to actually incorporate into my everyday life consistently. It's small and lightweight, so you can throw it in your gym bag or work bag, or even an overnighter. Quinn's lasers and LED combo make this cutting-edge device extremely versatile for use with general aches and pains, as well as chronic back pain, arthritis, post-surgery recovery, endometriosis, and more. This has been an amazing tool keeping my elbows and knees pain-free for pressing, pulling, and squatting in the gym. Great tools like the Move Plus give me the freedom and flexibility to continue living life on my terms without limitations. There are a lot of reasons why over 15,000 people are using this device and rating it 4.7 stars and above. Head on over to Quinn.io and use code ALLSMITH.
It's tough because I don't want to sit on a high
to
horse
begin your
just in the
pain-free
podcast
journey.
space, like pushing down the medical system, because I think there's a lot of good to it too. Something that I talk about often is just the relationship between what I do, which I would describe as preventative medicine, lifestyle, habit, exercise, mindset, human connection, primal sources of living, real food, trying to stay away from processed foods. It's easy to say all these things, but as you know, Marley, everything's processed food now. Like even when you look at vegetables, we look at Bill Gates and the spraying of a peel. a lot of our vegetables, especially in places at like farmers markets or Sprouts or Whole Foods. And then we've seen Dr. Paul Saladino talk about soaking your vegetables or your fruits in baking soda to try to mitigate some of the challenges there. We're seeing all kinds of things around our water, trying to remove some of the bad ingredients of the lead, of some of the things that are in toothpaste and some of the different ingredients there. But then something that I heard the other day that was really interesting, and I want to pick your mind on this, which is birth control. And you think about all the women in the world that are like, you know what? If men are sleeping around, we look at dating websites, I'm going to sleep around too. Like, I need to test drive the car before I get into the relationship, the whole shebang. And there's a lot of sex happening in the world, but there's not a lot of procreation. There's not a lot of children that are coming from this. We are seeing the increase in IVF. We're seeing, more women experience shifts in their menstrual cycle. We're seeing birth control actually be a big fucking problem. And now it's the conversation of like, oh, we should have male birth control. And, there's versions of that I'm not an expert on, but I've seen referenced. But the big thing that floated on my surface this week was like, whoa, lots of people are on a form of birth control. And then they're obviously excreting some of those chemicals into their urine. Many of these cities are now recycling their water based on droughts and deficiencies in water. And we can filter out a lot of the different like tangible elements, but you can't really filter out the birth control. So now most people, if they're consuming water and like they might use a Berkey water filter, they might try their best. They might have like a Brita, but you can't really filter out the birth control. So now both men and women are consuming that in the form of water. They're washing their vegetables with that. They're jumping in pools with that. They're getting rained on by that. They're jumping in an ocean associated with that. All these things open the door to ways that birth control can now penetrate the skin, the different orifices of the human body. For the first time ever, we're seeing this world of like really soft men that aren't providers, that are now like men versus women. And like, there's all this controversy and tension associated with that conversation. And at first I was like, oh, this is a mindset issue. Now I'm like, holy fuck, this could be like a chemical issue associated with the birth control that's getting into our water. What are your thoughts on this? Because this is something that's not talked about as often as I think it should be.
Definitely. I think, to be honest, obviously every water is going to be different depending on what city or town you're in. And so, it's hard to know who exactly this is affecting, right? Because some cities have way better water filtration than others. And some people, like you said, are using a Berkey or a reverse osmosis. But the reality is, you're very right that birth control, there is absolutely birth control runoff that's going into tap water. And it has been tested, it has been shown. And to say that that's, single-handedly the reason that we're seeing this generation of softer men, which I don't think is what you're saying, but it absolutely could be contributing to that. And I think obviously any artificial hormone that is being ingested by a human is going to have effects. I mean, these are pharmaceuticals and they're designed to have effects on the human body. So to think that they won't just because you're drinking it in tap water is, silly to think. As far as the tap water goes, I mean, I hope that they come out with more research on this. I hope they're more transparent about what we are seeing in people's tap water, because this is a real issue. And, it's something that needs to be remedied, whether or not this is contributing to softer men. Like this is affecting everyone. Any chemicals in our tap water that are pharmaceuticals that are designed to have effects on the body shouldn't be in our tap water.
Mm-hmm. Especially considering like we don't have the choice, right? Like that's something that we're trusting the government to be safe. And I love that you really at the beginning of your explanation just now. You created transparency around, hey, what I think you're saying is this. I don't think you're saying that, which was very true in the sense of like, I'm not trying to like blame solely birth control penetrating our tap water as like the reason. There's so many different variables for softer men. But I love that you brought that up, because when exploring your Instagram, you do such an amazing job in content creation of creating like context around like big picture issues. But what people love to do is they love to dive into the nuance of words. Like if you say the term, women are not little men, all of a sudden, to the insecure man, in my opinion, that's now observed as, oh, why are you depreciating or putting down men? It's like, no, that wasn't the goal of the post. The goal of the post is to say that most men are larger in size than women. And as a byproduct, based on our hormonal cycle and going through the onset, ovulation, the luteal phase, the actual week of period symptoms, men go through that on kind of a daily basis. We have our own version of a cycle, and there's so many things to explore there. But you saying women are not little men is not putting down men. It's trying to just create context where there's not probably the appropriate verbiage to better understand that. But so many people, rather than like zooming out and taking a zoomed out perspective on the context of the totality of a post, zoom in on one thing. And then they try to nitpick within the comments. And Marley, it's a fucking waste of time. It's so annoying because it's like, dude, you're right. I am wrong in the specificity of what I said in that one sentence. But the goal of this post was to have this macro understanding that like men and women are different. Let's take notice to this and let's try our best to make observation and awareness so that way we can move the needle in the right direction. So there's this synergy and this collaboration between men and women because we both love and we both need each other. It shouldn't be this adversarial like contrast.
Yeah, absolutely. That unfortunately struck a chord with people, especially the comment about saying women are not little men. And I think having gone through medical school, this is the dogma that used to be taught in medical school was, oh, well, women are on average smaller than men, so we're just going to titrate their dosage down just a little bit because they're typically don't have as much body mass. And so it's something that you hear a lot in the medical system, women being treated like little men. But of course, there was someone that commented, as a little man, I'm offended by this. I'm 5'4", and now you're comparing women to me. And it just, it is unfortunate. And I think it doesn't just happen to me. It happens on a grand scale, not just in social media, but again, like people really trying to nitpick and get into the weeds and the semantics of things. And I think it's extremely divisive. And, I think we all would get along better if we could agree, hey, I think we agree on probably 80% of a lot of things. And I think most humans honestly do. And they try to focus on the smaller disagreements or things that maybe they don't see eye to eye on. And that becomes the focus. And now something that was 20% has become 100% of the issue.
I'm going to throw out a pretty bold statement here. I don't view it to be 100% true, but it's my observation based on recency bias up until this point. And I'm going to say that most conservatives are relatively open-minded, and they say, hey, I'm going to give you a 10 out of 10, and I'm going to create a safe space to just give you the utmost respect. And then based on observation and behavior, I will depreciate points of your 10 out of 10. What I've seen is that most liberals, not all, but most, say, fuck you, you're a 0 out of 10. prove yourself to me. Show me the science. Make me believe it. And then based on that observation, the communication strategy, the relationship is that like one person is a buyer, one person's a seller. You're operating out of a lack because you're having to prove yourself based on science. But the phrasing, as you and I both know, trust the science, it's fabricated. It's something that's now steered by big pharma. And you and I both know that there's experts out there that can manipulate a study to get whatever result you want to then publish it accordingly in order to monetize, get it approved by the FDA, and blah, blah, blah downstream. I mean, just the other day, somebody's like, ivermectin, it doesn't do shit. And I was like, hold on. There's not a ton of research around it, but if you look at countries around the world, it's actually used as an anti-parasitic drug. We've seen benefits of people taking that and mitigating some of the issues associated with COVID, associated with parasites, associated with inflammation, when paired with fenbendazole, could be a really great tool. We heard numerous experts, including Dr. Peter McCullough on Joe Rogan, talk about the benefit of that. There shouldn't be a blanket statement of like, hey, this doesn't do shit. It's, hey, we don't know that much about this yet. It seems to be something that could be a tool. Let's learn more. But it's jumping to the side of the coin of you're a 0 out of 10. Fucking prove it to me. It's like this muchísimo, like aggravated ego, as opposed to, you know what? That's really interesting. I haven't heard that before. I'm skeptical, but I'm curious to learn more. And I'm more attracted personally to the curious mind than I am to just the egotistical, skeptical mind. How do we create more open-mindedness within the medical system that's not so, I believe this versus that, because it quite frankly doesn't really make sense. Oh, during COVID, if you take the vaccine, you're now saving the world and you're not selfish because you're doing this thing. But then when I walk through the grocery store, you've got Fruit Loops, you've got high fructose corn syrup, you've got all these terrible things that actually, I asked you at the very beginning of our podcast, what was the one thing that helped steer you towards an open-mindedness, towards a primal style of living and more of a naturopathic approach? You said it wasn't one thing, it was small decisions over the course of time. That's the epitome of how good things and bad things impact your health. The Fruit Loops, instead of the eggs for breakfast, over the course of time, add up to a poor lifestyle and negatively impact your health biomarkers. Why is this stuff that seemingly is common sense to me not talked about? And it's not thrown into the realm of science, and it's strong-armed based on ego and knowledge and whatever the political narrative is. Like, I'm more interested in policy over politics. I'm not trying to be on a side. I'm just trying to see more healthy individuals pursuing their peak expression and an open-mindedness within the healthcare system of like, hey, we have this knowledge over here, but there's this reservoir of knowledge that we haven't explored yet that could potentially be beneficial.
Yeah, I just made a post about this yesterday. As far as health goes, it really shouldn't be political. And I think, like you said, like when you put politics over policy, I mean, now you get people fighting, even though they're essentially, like I said, they agree on probably 80%. Like everyone wants healthier people, but now we're again at odds because we've put the politics first. Um, I think on a grand scale, it's very difficult to do. And to tie in what we were talking about earlier, as far as like being in this capitalistic culture and where attention is the new currency, you're just trying to say the most outlandish thing or the most polarizing thing in order to get eyes on you and in order to get attention. And the reality is, probably the most polarizing thing that you could say is not going to really be the solution. And unfortunately, that's kind of, where all of this has gone and landed. And, things such as drinking raw milk has now become political. And I think it will go to show that we've really made progress when you can be drinking raw milk and against artificial colors and flavors and food dyes being in our food, and not have people say, oh, well, you're a Trump supporter. It shouldn't be about Donald Trump. Like, this is about healthy people. And I don't know how we have gotten here as a society, but it's extremely toxic to everyone, and it's not solution oriented at all.
Yeah, it's very true. I also think being the black sheep is hard, right? Like, as a society, in a world that seemingly is more connected with social media, we're actually more lonely than ever. People struggle with basic eye contact. People struggle with body language. People struggle with having the hard conversation. They'd rather send the email or the text. I mean, I remember in high school, if you were interested in a girl, you had to like call the landline. You had to talk to mom or dad, and it was like uncomfortable and like awkward. Like, hey, is so and so there? Can I talk to her? And then like it was like awkward. She had to like grab the phone and like pull it 15 feet to like wrap around into the other room so she could get some privacy away from the family. But if they had another landline, you know, brother and sister was listening to it or whatever. I feel that's like funny, but it's also like the level of courage that it takes to either do that or knock on the door and be like, hey, is so-and-so here? I mean, I was very fortunate to grow up across the street from 3 girls, and they became like our sisters and really close, like family to my brother and I. And like knocking on the door to be like, hey, do you want to come outside and play? I had to talk to their parents. It took courage. It took all these things. But now you can just send like a passive aggressive email or a passive aggressive text or be like, hey, I'm outside. Or, you know, modern boyfriends probably like honk the horn because they don't want to deal with the confrontation. And this avoidant culture, this ghosting culture of, oh, I just don't want to deal with this, I'm not going to respond. In my opinion, like that's little bitch culture. Like, you're not actually standing and owning the behaviors and the context of the certain experience. And like, if it's not working out, just have the honest conversation. Like, hey, I'm not meant for this, or, you know, this isn't the right fit, or, you know, I appreciate you coming in with this knowledge and understanding, but based on your test results, I don't know if mono is your diagnosis, just to kind of reference what we were talking about before. It could be this, but there's so much certainty around like, oh, it's strep, I'm going to sign this. And you're like, I'm not sure. Like, I'm not creating buy-in around that. And I feel like you're not listening to me. But then when you say that, it's like, well, I know best. I went to medical school. Like, you know, anybody could find a ton of bullshit on the internet. And it's like, they're not wrong. But allow that space and that time to information gather, to share information. And now it's this energetic cord of love and understanding and data capture, which then leads to true healing. But it's hard because that takes time. Time takes money. And if you take money away, now medical directors are underneath pressure as far as their systems, their processes and procedures, the landscape of protocols that they need to follow in order to maximize profit. And if they're not maximizing profit, now they're getting in trouble by the owners of the hospitals. The owners of the hospitals are getting in trouble by Big Pharma. Big Pharma is now getting in trouble from their investors. And it's like, nobody wants to get in trouble. There's no issues when everybody's making money. But seemingly we can go through an entire pandemic and nobody says, hey, we should actually get natural sunlight. We should actually eat real food. We should actually move often at a slow pace, sprint every once in a while, lift heavy things a couple times a week. Oh, actually, we also need some human connection. We're experiencing a loneliness epidemic as well. So we need human connection. That can be Zoom if we have to. That can be phone calls. That can be genuine interest in other people. But all of those things were removed. They weren't the first thing talked about. It was go get this vaccine, but you can eat like shit. You can isolate yourself. You can sleep like shit. None of these things matter because they're not according to science. The vaccine is science. But we're not going to talk about myocarditis. We're not going to talk about pericarditis. We're not going to talk about aluminum in vaccines. We're not going to talk about autism. All these things have been swept under the rug because Big Pharma's got a lot of money and make sure that you don't see it. Guess what, ladies and gentlemen? This is now floating to the surface. And there's a reason why we're having a hard time with procreation. People are having a hard time having children. Men's testosterone has dropped immensely based on so many variables, not just vaccines, but microplastics, lifestyle factors, overprescribing of TRT, and some of these other things, lack of movement, lack of lifting things, lack of connection to our natural biology, which is go for a fucking walk, get away from artificial sunlight, stop sitting so much. As I kind of go on this little rant, what's coming to mind for you as somebody who's in the doctor space, somebody that's really trying to make change, and you're realizing like, hey, I can do this faster and more efficiently in a social media landscape than I can just in an office?
Yeah, I think we're having a huge health crisis. I mean, as far as I've seen with the stats, they keep getting worse every year. There's more mental health issues every year. There's more infertility every year. There's more obesity every year. So whatever we're doing is not working. And as far as social media goes, I mean, I just knew I'm super passionate about this, and whoever wants to follow along and listen is welcome to. And I'm so grateful that I have grown a platform of people that are wanting to hear this information, because you're right. I mean, it is being kind of swept under the rug. And the reality is, I think last time I checked, the death rate from COVID in the United States was 4 times that of any other country. And we spend the most on healthcare out of any country. So our death toll should not be 4 times anyone else. Like it really should be the lowest. And of course, causation versus correlation here, it's hard to know. But of course, COVID deaths are related to all these other comorbidities and being overweight. And so if we're really so worried about COVID and the COVID death toll, it makes no sense that people aren't pushing and that doctors aren't pushing more resources towards fighting obesity. If that's really the underlying cause for such a high death toll, why are we not trying to fix the root cause? And why are we not telling people to go on a walk?
In relation to the specificity around like the world's pushing all these different modalities for vaccines and for things that are trusting the science, and you understand personally that like they can be tools, but we have to take into consideration the lifestyle factors first. How do you integrate that education amongst your patients?
As a holistic doctor and holistic practitioner, I think all of us are kind of on the same page that before we discuss any further what's going on with the patient, we have to ask them about their lifestyle. And that's just kind of the foundation for understanding the full scope of someone's health in the first place. And I always say this on my videos: if your doctor is not asking questions about your lifestyle, they're not your doctor, they're your drug dealer. And there are medical doctors that do ask questions about lifestyle. Absolutely. Like they're out there and they exist. And, you know, I've spent a lot of time on this podcast talking about my qualms with medical doctors, but I don't want that to be disempowering in the sense that now we're just hopeless and what can we do? No, there are absolutely quality medical doctors out there that want to take your lifestyle into consideration. Perhaps it's easier to seek that care out from the holistic community, but there are absolutely medical doctors that do that as well. And I think that with any health presentation that is going on in your body, it just makes sense cerebrally that if your sleep is not good and if your diet is not good and if your mental health is not good, like of course you're going to feel like shit. And so at the very least, like that's something that a doctor can help you with pretty easily, because these are free things like going outside and going for a walk, and you don't have to have a $500 gym membership to Equinox. And I think doctors can do a lot of good by recommending a ton of free resources that people can really prioritize. And unfortunately, during COVID, we didn't see this as much. In fact, we were kind of seeing quite the opposite. We were seeing recommendations to stay inside and not be out in the sun and not interact with people. And these things go against our very nature and what it means to be a healthy, vital human.
Yeah. As we wrap things up, because I know you need to jump to your next appointment, the big thing that I want to touch on in relation to that is like take fucking ownership for it. Don't sit there and sweep it under the rug and be like, oh, we didn't know, we didn't know. It's like you knew exactly what you were doing. You were pushing a narrative that was for profit. And it's like if you're by yourself and you're still exercising the 6 foot distance, like we know, like it's not rocket science. When you're in the sun, you feel better. I'm not saying to abuse it and overprescribe the dosage, but it's like when you hydrate, you're better. When you eat real food, you're better. Like talk about those things. Understand that they're valuable pillars and they're valuable variables. And then it's like, yeah, okay. If we talk about that, now you're creating actually more buy-in around vaccines and social distancing and all the different things associated with that. But if you don't talk about that at all and you label it as unimportant and tell me to mask up, even though there's all kinds of bacteria and historical track record associated with masking, like you lose your credibility to me because you're not painting the total context. You're just painting a part of the picture. You're trying to overemphasize that. And now it just makes me distrust you. So it's something that I think it's important for people to note. And then my final question for you is, since we've kind of overarched an emphasis on health and wellness and things that people can do, you being a naturopathic doctor and always taking a holistical approach in combination with a Western medical approach when necessary, what would you say are some very easy swaps to drastically improve your health in 30 days? If you're trying to just give people like, hey, do these things for the next 30 days and you will improve your health, your wellness, and your quality of life.
All right. If money, I'll give two branches to this, because if money is not an issue, or you have disposable income, then I would say invest in a high quality water filter and invest in minerals to remineralize your water. Hydration is key. Eat organic food as much as you can. If you have like a local farmer's market, eating organic and in season is going to be great for your health. You're going to maximize your nutrient absorption if you're eating local and in season. And getting 10,000 steps a day minimum. If you're really looking to transform your health, maybe do 15, but 10,000 bare minimum. I think being sedentary has, they say sitting is the new smoking, and it really is true. If you want to see drastic health improvements, like get moving and get out in the sun. Um, and just find something that makes you happy and something that you're passionate about. I think that that can drastically change your life and your health as well. Having a real mission and having a real purpose and something to live for will transform your life. And of course, if money is a bit of an issue, then just eating, you don't have to eat organic and you don't have to do it perfectly, but switching to single ingredient foods that don't really have a nutrition label. So picking up fruits, picking up vegetables, like even if it's not organic, if it's still a single ingredient food, a banana is better than Oreos. Like if you're not going to eat organic anyway, you may as well eat single ingredient foods. And there's plenty of resources out there that show you that it doesn't cost any more to eat single ingredient foods. Um, and thankfully, we have ChatGPT and AI can write you a whole grocery list for whatever your budget is, and eating single ingredient foods, and then just getting outside in the sun and again, having people you love and focusing on your relationships and having something to live for can really transform your health.
So well said. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Marley Quinn.
Thank you.
Where can people find you?
They can find me on Instagram at dr.marleyquinn, and TikTok as well. That's my TikTok handle. And they can find me anywhere in the world, I guess. I'm in new places all the time. So come say hi.
Much knowledge and education on your Instagram. If people are trying to learn more about healthy habits, lifestyle adjustments, understanding from someone that's gone to medical school and has their credentials and has the historical track record and knowledge and understanding within the space, check out Dr. Marley Quinn. Also check out, if you're struggling as a woman trying to integrate movement or intensity or understanding when to push, when to pull back, when to rest, she's got a beautiful post on her Instagram where you can comment flow and get a better understanding as to how to navigate your menstrual cycle with movement, with lifestyle, with food, with rest, with recovery, with connection, and with intensity. So, is there anything that I missed that you'd love to share with our listeners?
No, I think that was great. Thank you so much for having me. This was an awesome conversation, and I'm honored to be here.
Pleasure connecting with you. Guys, if you enjoyed my conversation with Dr. Marley Quinn, please rate, review, subscribe, and as always, share with your friends. And of course, stay on the hunt for who you've not yet become. Until next time, thank you, Marley.